nervous because I'm here now.
Hey guys, welcome into another episode of 410 Sports Talk. I'm James Haskell, along with my co-host Glenn Martin, and a familiar face in front of the show, Kevin Hickey. Kevin, thanks for coming on, man.
Of course, appreciate you guys having me back.
Yeah, and Kevin, of course, is a contributor at the Coltswire, and then of course at the Giantswire. So we're excited to get your insight into this matchup with the Ravens and the Giants. A big one, certainly for us as far as the playoffs go, and a big one for you guys as far as draft seeding and things like that, which is definitely still important. And we'll get into all of that. But once again, thanks for coming on. Glenn, I'm going to start this one off here with what I think is a great question. So I'm going to steal it out from under you. Joe Judge, and this gives me an opportunity to bash the Patriots, even though I'm more of a Belichick guy than
anytime we can do it.
But Glenn pointed out, and and rightfully so, the Bill Belichick tree is not great as far as we saw Patricia let go. O'Brien was a dumpster fire. Cromell, right, was another one that was kind of from
Cornell.
Yeah, it was from Bill, and there's some other ones. Hasn't gone nearly as well as like the tree of Andy Reid and things like that. But Joe Judge started out rough, then they went on a little win streak, and it seems like he's been able to right the ship. What are your thoughts on him as a head coach, and then what do you think the team and the franchise's thoughts on him are moving forward?
Yeah, so it's been an interesting ride with Joe Judge. Obviously, the first thing you want to do, in my opinion, when you're a new head coach, when you're a first-year head coach, is find a way to get your guys to buy in, right? You may not have to be the smartest schematic guy, or you don't have to use all the analytics or be the new guy coming in. But when you're a first-year head coach, your first objective has to be, how can I get these guys to buy in and follow me as a leader? That's one of the most important things. I think that's why we see a lot of these guys, they get so much praise for being like very smart X's and O's guys, but then they fail as head coaches because they can't get the team to buy in. That's the one thing I think Joe Judge has done incredibly since he's been leading the Giants. They're a team that you're not going to see a bunch of all pros or Pro Bowlers. I think they only had 2 Pro Bowlers this year. So they are just a bunch of scrappy guys who are going to play through the whistle. They're going to play hard. They're going to give it their all. And that all starts with Joe Judge and kind of the mentality that he's brought to the team. So he's kind of that old school, little bit of a, kind of like a hardo. He's going to be like, I'm going to be on you all the time. And, I expect maximum effort all the time from you. So that's the one thing that kind of stood out for me, through the first, 15 weeks. And yeah, he's had his rough patches. The roster is not great. It's still a work in progress. They're kind of in between this rebuild and like try to win now, because the NFC East is just a dumpster fire right now. So I love Joe Judge. I think he's a good coach for the team that they have now. I think he is far from, any of their top problems or anything like that. So I think what he's shown through his first 15, 14 games is that he knows how to lead the team. He knows how to get the team to buy in. And for your first time ever as a head coach in the NFL, that's huge. And that's something that's impressed me along the way.
Yeah, I think that's a good point to point that out, because Harbaugh, something we always point to, he's just a natural leader. And I think that's
right.
one of the most important qualities of a head coach, regardless of how much offensively or defensively. Can you lead a group of men who are a lot of them are millionaires? So it's hard, it's not like they're kids and you're in college. So I think that's a good point. That's something that definitely he should be leaning on. Were you at all surprised that Jason Garrett was pegged as his OC at first? And how do you feel like the Freddie Kitchens, Jason Garrett led offenses look?
It's been okay. I wasn't that surprised, to be honest. The Giants, as soon as he was fired from the Cowboys, it was like that. I mean, the Giants were all over him. They wanted him real bad. I mean, there was talk that he was going to be the head coach of the team, and that would have been, let me tell you, that probably would not have sat right with Giants fans. So it's been okay. His offense really isn't all that diverse. They've had a lot of issues with the offensive line to begin the year, and that kind of set them back a little bit. So I think Freddie Kitchens is a much better position coach than he is, obviously, as a head coach. We saw what happened with the Browns last year. I mean, that was a dumpster fire as well. So, the combination it's not spectacular. They're not going to blow you away with 30-point games all the time. They do enough to get the job done because their defense has been playing above expectation. But, I wouldn't be surprised. I think Jason Garrett probably sticks around, but I wouldn't be surprised if they made a change in the offseason. Somebody that might have a little more upside in terms of getting the offense to reach its ceiling more consistently.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and one of the things we have you kind of led us into our next question as far as where they're at between this rebuild, and then because the NFC East is a special is a special
is the right word. Yeah,
that's right. They're in a special circumstance where 5-9 on the season, they're very much in the mix. So as a Giants fan, are you hoping they can find their way into the playoffs, or are you hoping for a higher draft position? So what's your opinion on that personally? And then
that's always a tough.
What do you see fan base? Sorry, what do you see the fan base leaning towards as far as which they'd prefer?
Yeah, I mean, for me personally, I've always been kind of a guy that if you can win, try to win. You know what I mean? I mean, we're not the Jets here. We're not trying to tank the season, something that they failed to do.
They can't even do that right.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're in a position to win. They can win the division. Surprisingly, somehow at 6-10, they can do it. So I say go for it. You know what I mean? I've always been a guy that you want the team to win, and then you make your decisions. You kind of plan your way after that. As far as the fan base, I think they would probably agree. I don't think they're in a position to where, even if they don't make the playoffs, which is an absolute possibility, their draft pick isn't going to be so high that they would get a Trevor Lawrence or Penei Sewell from Oregon, the offensive tackle. So it's like you're kind of in this position where you don't really want to miss the playoffs just for a draft pick. So I say they go all in. They try to make the playoffs. Do what you can. I mean, you've seen they've had games where they can beat the Seahawks. They've played in a lot of close games where their defense kind of keeps them in it. So I say go for it. I'm always for the team winning. As much as I would love for them to have a shot to get, a higher draft pick, you want the team to win. So that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, I guess if you're not picking one or two, I mean, at this point, the difference would be they'd be still picking in the teens. I'm assuming.
Right.
So,
yeah. So like right now they have the number 10 pick. So, that's high, but it's
way,
it's not a game changer.
Right. And it's no guarantee if you're picking at 10, you're getting an all-pro player either. So
they took Eric Flowers at 10, like 5 years ago. So it was 9 or 10. I can't remember which one it was, but it was right there. I mean, that pick set them back years. So yeah, it's not a guarantee what you're going to get there.
Well, a more recent first round pick, Daniel Jones, I'm kind of on the fence about him because certain times I watch him, I go, wow, if this kid just had some more talent around him, I really feel like he could do something. But then I know other people are kind of on the opposite end of that spectrum. What are your thoughts on Daniel Jones? Is he a franchise quarterback? And if surrounded with enough talent, could he lead this team to a Super Bowl?
Yeah, I think you kind of hit it right on the head, man. You kind of look at him and you're like, oh, man, this, you see his arm talent. And you're like, this guy can make every throw in the book. You get him
he can run.
A better offensive line. Yeah, he can use his legs. I mean, they use his own read way more than I thought they would. So you look at him and you're like, he's kind of the whole package when he's on, you know what I mean? And then he has the games where he fumbles 3 times, throws 2 picks, and the Giants lose on the last drive because of a turnover. And it's like, I mean, get this guy out of here. What are we doing? Put Colt McCoy in. So I mean, I'm kind of with you. You're kind of I guess I lean more, if I'm being honest, I want to see what he can do with a full cast around him. You know what I mean? Get the offensive line going, get them working more consistently together and better protection. Get some weapons around him. They don't have that stud wide receiver. Evan Ingram has not panned out in the slightest. Somehow he made a Pro Bowl this year, and I'm just flabbergasted. It does not make any sense to me. But, I love Sterling Shepard. I think he's a great kind of low A-dot, right over the middle slot guy, very reliable hands, willing to make the tough catch over the middle. I love Sterling Shepard. I'm not a huge fan of Golden Tate. I think he makes some contested catches down the field, but in terms of what they're paying for him, he has not replicated that type of production. And then you have a guy like Darius Slayton on the outside who's a great deep threat, but the connection with him and Daniel Jones has been a bit more inconsistent than we expected this year. So I think if they go into the draft this year, or even they can somehow get an Allen Robinson in there and they get those pieces around Daniel Jones, I think we're going to see a bit more consistent play from him. So, I mean, you kind of hit it on the head. A lot of people are like, this guy needs to go. Other people are saying, you get the right tools around him, he can be a franchise quarterback. And I still think we're kind of in wait and see mode, which is pretty bad as he goes into year 3. But, I think if they start to build around him more, we'll see a lot more consistent play. Because when you see those flash plays, it blows your mind, kind of some of the throws that he makes. Mm-hmm. So and then you add in that he can make plays with his feet and his legs. That's just another component of the Giants offense that they can use to their advantage. So, I still believe in Daniel Jones. I still think, even if they had a relatively high pick, that they shouldn't take a quarterback. But that's not up to me.
No, for sure. I kind of want to stay on the same path you were talking about, the receivers and things. And one of the things that Glenn and I, of course, we've been discussing for the past couple of weeks is that our secondary, which coming into the season was the most shored up position group probably on our team, if not most definitely on our defense. Right now, they're pretty banged up. And I'm sure that you saw in that Monday night game, as soon as our 8th string corner went out, they started attacking our 10th string corner over and over and over again. And so, we have one guy, of course, in Marlon Humphrey that is for sure going to play. He's healthy and he's our best corner. Usually what we ask Marlon to do is pretty much cover the best one out there all the time, no matter what the circumstances. So if you're the Ravens, who are you putting Marlon on based on those receivers and even tight ends that you mentioned?
Probably Darius Slayton. Darius Slayton is kind of the guy that he's going to be making the plays downfield. So I think if the Giants are going to have a chance in this game, they're going to have Darius Slayton making big plays down the field. As I said earlier, I love Sterling Shepard. I love his skill set, but he's not a guy that if he hits his ceiling in a game, the Giants can still lose. But if Darius Slayton hits his ceiling in a game, he's going for 150 yards and 2 touchdowns. So I think Humphreys is probably going to have to. I don't know how much he shadows in terms of man coverage the whole game, but I would assume that that's the matchup that the Ravens will want. They'll want Humphreys on Slayton just to take away that deep threat component, especially if Daniel Jones doesn't play. Daniel Jones doesn't play and Colt McCoy is the quarterback, and you can take away that deep threat. I don't think they're going to have any issues.
Wow, yeah, it's interesting with Humphrey because they asked him to do a lot of things last week, cover a lot of different guys, but yet he still got like 10 targets thrown his way, despite the fact that Jimmy was out, Marcus Peters is out. So surprising the teams aren't necessarily avoiding him, even though he was clearly our best cornerback who was available last game. So it should be interesting to see, even no matter who he's covering. I expect him to still get targets. There's no doubt about it. But as far as the defensive side of the ball, there's some names on the defensive side of the ball that can really, really play. And one of the big names is tackling machine Blake Martinez. I mean, this guy tackles everything. I think he tackles the ushers and the fans when they come in. He just tackles everyone. And after signing from Green Bay, I mean, that was one of the bigger free agent signings. So with the Ravens coming in with this vaunted rush attack, I mean, it seems to be better, getting better and better down the stretch of the season as the offensive line continues to gel. How key will Blake be? And is there something he and the rest of those guys can do to slow down this rush attack?
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a test, especially because I think we're seeing a lot more consistent play from J.K. Dobbins. I think he's really starting to take over that backfield. So when you talk about his explosiveness and, like you said, the offensive line for the Ravens is really hard to come together the last couple of weeks. I don't know if they'll be able to outright stop them, but if they can limit him, that would be huge. And Blake's going to have a huge role in that. He's kind of been the guy that they've been using a lot on their run defense. And when you talk about him and you got Leonard Williams and Dalvin Tomlinson and Dexter Lawrence, those four kind of really work together on the interior with their run fits. So they're going to have to stay disciplined. They're going to have to be able to move sideline to sideline. Will they be able to do it? That kind of remains to be seen, because the beginning of the year, the Giants were actually pretty good against the run. They were getting stops when they needed to, but they've been shaky lately. So I think this is a game that just the whole overall scheme and skill set of the Ravens is going to be a little too much, but I wouldn't be surprised if Blake Martinez comes out of this game with 12 tackles. Yeah,
no, me neither. I agree with you. And in fact, I was interested to see if the Ravens would have more interest in him in the offseason. Obviously it panned out with getting Patrick Queen and things like that, but he seems like a type of guy that would fit well in a defense like ours as well. So the other names, you mentioned one, but I want to bring up another. Of course, you mentioned Leonard Williams, but the other one that I want to bring up is Jabril Peppers. How do you see those two guys having an impact on this game? You talked about Leonard on the interior of the defense. How do you see them moving around Jabril? He's kind of a Swiss Army knife back there, and I feel like he plays in a lot of different positions. So how do you see them utilizing his talents?
Yeah, like you said, they're going to use him everywhere. They'll use him as a deep safety if they go a single high look. They'll use him as a split safety in a zone if they need too high. But then they'll use him in the slot. They'll have him cover tight ends. They'll have him cover running backs. They blitz on with him a little bit. So expect him when they go into their blitz packages to be using him there. And then he's also going to be on the punt return and kick return. So they use him as much as they can. I mean, when they made the trade for him with the Browns, it was like, all right, we're going to try to use this guy for all his worth, because they wound up giving Odell Beckham Jr. away. So when you talk about Peppers, he's a huge part of the defense, just in terms of their ability to be multiple, their ability to do different things and kind of give different looks and disguise pre-snap. So he's going to be all over the formation. They'll have him in the box. They'll have him in the slot. They'll have him as a deep safety. And then Leonard Williams is just a guy. They're just asking him to get upfield. Beat your guy, get upfield, get a pressure, get a run stop, do what you got to do. And he's been doing that for the most part. He leads the team. I think he's at like 49 pressures on the year, which is pretty good among defensive interiors. So he's definitely a guy that the Ravens offensive line is going to have to look after.
Yeah, was he got 8.5, I think, sacks on the year from
the interior?
It's right
around there.
That's no joke. But I'm glad you brought him up, Jimmy. I asked Jimmy before the show if I should bring this guy up, and since you brought him up, I'm going to do it. Jabril Peppers came over, obviously, in the Odell Beckham trade with the obvious. It seems like subtraction is an advantage, or addition by subtraction. When he went out, all of a sudden the Browns are taking off. Baker looks unbelievable. So it seems that a departure is in the future for Odell Beckham. I've heard some pundits and some rumors saying, don't be surprised if he's back in New York with the Giants. What do you say to those guys, and how would you feel if that came true?
As much as I love the early years of Odell and his just absolute domination in a Giants uniform, I don't think it's going to happen. His contract is it's massive. And that was one of the reasons that they traded him away, even though at the time they said we didn't sign him to trade him, but that's exactly what they did. So as much as I love the talent of Odell, I don't think a reunion is in the picture. I mean, you just talk about, I don't like to use the word distraction, even though, his actions did garner a lot of attention. And when you're in New York and you are as vocal as Odell is, and you are as flashy as Odell is, it's going to garner attention. And I think him and Joe Judge would actually be a better fit than most would assume, because when it comes down to it, Odell really does want to win. I think that was the one thing that he kind of made clear with the Giants, was that he really does want to win, but there's going to be some extra stuff on the side. I mean, it's going to happen. It's just his personality. It's just what he brings with him. I don't think he really ever got over, not him necessarily, but us as Giants fans and just the whole media as a whole. That infamous boat picture that they took a week before going to Green Bay for the playoff game, and then he winds up, it's freezing cold, and he just throws up a dud of a game. So that's still fresh in the minds of Giants fans. So I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't necessarily be opposed to it as long as he's healthy. I still think he can be an effective player, but you're right. As soon as he went down with the Browns, their offense started clicking again. Baker didn't have to force feed targets to Odell. He could spread the ball around, kind of go through his progressions. And, I wouldn't hate it, because they need an alpha wide receiver, but I don't think it's going to happen.
Well, we'll definitely see. One thing for certain is we've seen crazier things in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely.
Lamar Jackson came out on 4th and 5 from his Taco Bell cramps. And,
cramps. Yeah.
So now
you don't run to the bathroom like that with cramps, man.
That's true. Or those pants, he might need a new change of pants. There's no doubt about it.
So one of the things that happened, and we kind of touched on this earlier, is at one point the Giants, of course, won 4 in a row, including in Seattle with a backup quarterback. So things haven't continued to shape out that way. What were the Giants doing right at that time that caused that 4-game win streak?
So one of the themes, I think, a little bit with the Giants this whole year was how well their defense has been playing. Like I said it earlier, they've kind of been playing above expectation, right? We kind of expected this group to be kind of patchwork. They have a new defensive coordinator, a new head coach. It takes time for those things to gel in a regular offseason, and then you have the whole COVID thing, and they don't get together throughout the whole offseason, and they kind of have to work as they go along. But they've been pretty good. Their offensive front is able to get pressure when they want. And the addition of James Bradbury in the secondary has been absolutely huge. I mean, he's playing at an all-pro level right now. The addition of Logan Ryan and his move to safety has also been huge because he's another guy that's versatile. He's going to work more in the back end of the secondary, but he's been amazing. He's been a great leader for the Giants. So when you have the defense playing that well, and then probably I'd say about halfway through the season, maybe like week 8 or so, Joe Judge actually started to take over the pass protection game plan for the Giants. And for the first like 7 weeks of the season, it was a revolving door. Every pass rusher gets a pressure on whatever given play. And it got to the point where Joe Judge had to step in and took over. And when he did that, the unit really started to take shape. They really started to come into their own and give more consistent pressure to Daniel Jones. So that whole thing kind of led to the firing of Mark Colombo, the old offensive line coach, and they brought in Dave DeGuglielmo, who was actually he was the Colts offensive line coach in 2018. So I was a little bit familiar with him, but I think when the defense was playing that well and the changes that Joe Judge made in terms of protection and the protection calls and kind of the schemes that they were running, and you saw a lot more improved technique on the offensive line, especially with the young guys like Andrew Thomas and Matt Pert. When you combine all those things, they just kind of hit their stride and they were able to stay in these games and wind up coming out on top. Whereas the weeks before, the offensive line just gave them no chance to come back or stay in a game. So, it was a great run. It was fun because the Giants were playing winning football, and then these last 2 weeks have just been absolutely dreadful. So that's kind of where they need to be. They need to be this team that plays really good defense and keeps the offense in the game, and then the offensive line has to play up to their caliber if they want to have a chance to win.
Yeah, no doubt. Well, I guess you kind of told us what the Giants have to do to get out on top. But what do you think? Like you mentioned some health issues. Do you think Daniel Jones ends up playing on Sunday, or do you think we have Colt McCoy?
I think if I had to make a prediction now, it's Tuesday. I'd probably say it's going to be Colt McCoy. Obviously, the injury reports are going to reveal kind of what the status is throughout the week. But, Daniel Jones suffered that hamstring injury and then tried to come back the next week. And I think it was too early. I think they should have just given him the week. But, it was kind of a big game. They needed to come in. They needed to win the game. And I just think it was too soon. And so now he's also got a bum ankle that he hurt in that game when he came back too soon. So I don't think he's going to play. The injury reports obviously will be very indicative. I think if he logs a practice on Wednesday, whether it be limited or full, I think he has a chance to play. But if he doesn't return on Wednesday, I think it's going to be very hard for him to return.
So if Colt is in there, what do they got to do then? What actually, I think you pretty much told me what they have to do. What will happen if Colt McCoy's under center? What's going to happen? What's the score?
Give us your prediction.
Here we go. I'm always terrible. I'm terrible with predictions. If Colt
Did you pick Indy to beat us?
What's that? Did I pick Indy to beat you? I actually don't think I did. That was the one I got wrong this year. Yeah, okay. I think I'm like 13-1 picking Colts games this year, and the Ravens game I chose the Ravens to win. And so I got that right.
No, the Ravens. Right. Yeah, okay.
Oh, the Jaguars game, the Jaguars game at the beginning of the season. So
I think everyone got that wrong.
Yeah, I would say. That's another time. So with Colt McCoy in, he actually played pretty well last week, even though the Giants only scored 3 points. So you're not going to see much. I don't think you're going to see much from Colt McCoy. I don't think the offense has much upside with him in there, even if he is playing well. I think if they're going to have a chance, they're going to have to control the line of scrimmage with the run game. And they've been able to do that sometimes. They've somehow brought Alfred Morris back from the dead, and Wayne Gallman has been playing really well. So I think if they're going to have a chance, it's going to be the defense finds a way to limit Lamar Jackson in the run game, and then the offensive line plays up to its caliber, and they kind of control it with the run game and take their spots with Colt McCoy. So, but I don't think that's going to happen. I think it's going to be a little bit too much for the Giants to handle, and I think I have the Ravens probably somewhere in like a 24-13 win. I think they'll win pretty comfortably. I think they're starting to get on a roll with the offense, and I think it'll be plenty.
All right. Yeah. Well, we definitely like hearing that. Certainly. Now, we, of course, as I mentioned at the beginning, and for those of you who have been riding this for a while, you know that Kevin also works with the Coltswire. And so at this point, we got to ask before we let you go, we need the Colts to lose to the Steelers. The Steelers look like hot garbage. I mean, they're just awful. And I really want them in the first round if we get into the playoffs. Ooh, am I salivating?
Man, I think everyone does right now.
My goodness. But my question to you, what will happen down the stretch here with the Colts? Are they going to drop one, or do you think
help us out?
Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah. How does it feel to be
rooting for the Steelers?
You're talking about, yeah.
Terrible, man. It's like trying to change my religion.
I'm so torn on this because if you asked me 2 weeks ago, I probably would have definitively with confidence say that the Steelers would win this game. I really would have. But after dropping the games that they've dropped, I mean, they lost to the Bengals with Ryan Finley under center. I mean, what does that say in prime time? I mean, what does that say about them? So
yeah,
the way I look at it is the Colts are on fire right now. They're playing really well. They have just about everybody healthy. And I think if they take away, if they play aggressive, if their defense plays aggressive, they don't play the soft zone, and they don't worry about Big Ben trying to throw deep, I think they win this game. Mm-hmm. It'll be a tight one, but I think they win. And I think they're smart enough to kind of figure that out because we saw that against the Bengals last night. And I think if you play good man coverage and you don't really give them those underneath routes, I think you're going to be fine. So, I could definitely see the Colts splitting 1-1, and then you're kind of hoping that have the Ravens played the Dolphins this year?
No.
Yeah, so I think they're tied, right? They have the same record, I think.
Yeah.
So,
but they have the tiebreaker, so we need to have the edge.
Right. Okay. I think your best bet, honestly. I mean, I guess it doesn't matter because they hold the tiebreaker over the Colts too. Yeah. I think we just need one of them
50-50. To lose one. That's it.
It's 50-50. Yeah. Well, the thing about the Dolphins is they have the Bills in week 17, and I think the Bills win that game. So that could kind of be the way they get in. But the Colts, I definitely think the Colts win week 17. They have the Jaguars. I think they come out and, regardless of whether they win or lose to the Steelers, I think that's a win. So it's really 50-50. And this is kind of something I've been dealing with all week. I'm like, who am I going to pick to win? I think I got to go to the Colts. I think the Colts are going to win.
This seems like the type of game. There you go. This seems like the type of game where Phillip Rivers will take him right to the edge and then throw an interception. That's what I'm saying.
Like I could absolutely see that happening. Like they need a touchdown and they just throw a blitz and Minka Fitzpatrick picks off Phillip Rivers. Like I could absolutely see that happening. But with the way the Steelers
and how nuts would it be?
The way the Colts have been playing.
Well, I was just gonna say, how nuts would it be that an 11-win team with 3 wild cards somehow doesn't make the playoffs? I mean, it's nuts.
Then you got the NFC East, and the 6-10 team they're gonna be a top 4 seed. How does that work?
They're getting a home playoff game. Oh my!
It's ridiculous.
Well, we appreciate you coming on, man, and always thankful for the time. Hope you have a great holiday. Lots of great football. So we're excited. I'm sure you are as well. Thanks again, and we'll be in contact.
I appreciate it, guys, as always.
Have a good one. Bye.
Thanks.